Oh, check it. 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 Hey, check it. Check it. Check it. Hey, 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 check it. Check it. Hey, check it. Check it. Check, check, check. I just realized. I'm sorry. I'm sounding like a retard. Anyway, I'm gonna go back to it. But yeah, this is like exactly what I would never want anyone to hear or see me doing. But it's fun. I'm just trying to use my voice to stretch. You know, whatever, like voice therapy. Check it. Check it. I do this thing sometimes where I just make sounds, and I just want to let even if it sounds funny or stupid, to see if there are like some genuine feelings that I can't verbalize, but will just come out just making random sounds. So they're not really ever random. No sound is useless. Even the fart out of your own ass has a kind of way of speaking to people around you, right? I don't know. It just does, right? It's sometimes a fart is how you feel. That's basically I walked up to a guy at a grocery store, young man, beard, like he was in good shape, but I got the feeling he didn't like me because I walked up to him and he let out quite the air biscuit, quiet, but it was like, oh, and he probably didn't mean it, but it was like, in a sense, I felt like his subconscious was saying, this is how I feel. Because you're asking me where the fucking Heinz beans is. Anyway, so I'm walking behind him, realizing that I'm following the stench. I'm in the comet trail. It's like an obedient chimp. I'm like, oh, great. It's like I came up to this guy and he's like, I'm going to fart and you're going to follow me around and just take it all in. And we're going to pretend like this is totally okay because I can do that. And you're one of those weird people that will let me. And I really felt somewhat molested. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't his evil plan, but it lends itself to such a plan. I can impose this plan upon it, and it makes perfect sense. And that's where you have to be careful if you have a mind that can do that. But it's funny. Like, you should write fiction, but you shouldn't think that what you're thinking about things is actionable. You don't think, hey, dude, I know what you're doing. What? I know what you're doing. You're making me follow in your fart comet trail. Because I made you feel that way when I came up to you, right? That your fart was how you felt. It's okay, brother. I'm gay. I'm gay in the fart world. I feel like farts are feelings. Farts are feelings. I'm going to write a book called Farts Are Feelings. Excrement is fill in the blank. Exciting. Feces is what? Feces is what? TTs. Feces is a species. You can have a species of feces. I wonder what species is closest to feces. Whoa, 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 back up. What are you laughing about, brother? What are you talking about, Willis? Bruce Willis, I mean. Well, if you truly, in an ironic twist, if you're watching a documentary, it's like, on the hunt for the species who's most like feces, and they show like pictures of various people from different parts of the world, and little pictures of like small African boys spliced in. But really, at the end of the movie, it's like, and the answer to the question is, which feces is the most like its species, and the other way around? White people. What? That's right. People that look the least like feces act the most like feces. So, in an ironic twist, and Columbo's like, dun dun dun. Angela Lansbury's like, dun dun dun. You see, the fact is, people, in The Last Murder, She Wrote, what you need to know is that the most murderous, fecal-like parasitical behavior is to be seen by people who look just like me and my male contemporary over here, Columbo. In other words, white people, going about the ordinary, if heroic business of sniffing out a little bit of crime that can be entertaining and very satisfying, are nonetheless committing some of the most horrendous crimes in the world, and enjoy some of the greatest, if completely and never satisfying, advantages in working with the various legal devices that have laid waste to the kind of morality that should be rather multiplied than divided by the consummate efforts which we take to form groups of incredible meaning and fruitfulness for all of those around us who aren't as white as we are. Oh, I should probably get going. Okay. I don't know if it's too full out here. Which is to say, you don't have to be as smart as people on Jeopardy to be smart enough to understand the world in the way that you can be scared of it, and understand the world in the way that you can learn to endure it. If we were to pick a magical reason to be able to say the world is a place in which we can live, a world where we can bring our spirit and we feel okay conducting the most intimate congress we can with the other spirits we love the most, in the ultimate reality of the spirit, and not necessarily a spiritual reality, the way most people might think of it, because who cares how most people think about such things? What really matters is our family and the object of our first love and our first labor. And we can talk about such things in a kind of public or academic way, but the real substance of them is to be lived and breathed among those we love and must know and say we are always going somewhere else on the good red road that is meant to complete the most meaningful of lives, which are lives themselves drawn forth in all their flesh and blood, in the way that all of us are meant to draw forth meaning from the wonderful, purest waters of female creative energy. Our mothers love the meaning that was drawn forth when we were born, as we draw forth more meaning from our great mother and from nature, and from our first love of the love of nature and our mother, as though they are the same thing. And that's a luxurious, you might say, childlike thing, but it's an important human thing that has been lost by all the modern religions and child psychology itself, because it is such a, we've placed it in the realm of such mere, if you will, purest fantasy, and we just leave it locked in that world, in child storybooks. But yet look at what meaning and what delicacy can be taken to entreat the meaning-making faculties of a child to whom you tell but a wonderful story or fable. Look at what they draw forth, that you enjoy reading the book to them. What do you draw forth from their joy and their being entranced in such a storybook world? Think of the instrument of our minds and our voices. And not that they have been so abused, but that they have been forgotten. We have forgotten the sanctity of the mind that can enjoy the sun and its mother and its mother and its father and its brother and nature without ever having to write a poem about it, and have the greatest of knowledge and the greatest of jobs, drawing forth that breath. And to draw forth the most joyful, easy breath you might imagine a child drawing forth, you yet draw forth that breath in the most difficult of worlds. And we should honor that mind that draws forth joy, and not because it is a child, but because it has such a great mind that can draw forth joy. And such a great mother has drawn forth the apparatus of joy, and such a great father as they draw forth the apparatus and the aperture of their joy, and in the realm of the mother, no less. that born from such and such a mother and her reproductive system, we live as though in the land of our mother, the motherland. And our voice suffered no great torment in having no awareness of itself or its powers. And commended to the world as our mothers and fathers were, we were commended to a happy place to which we can entrust the voice of a child. Whose first labor drew forth this breath, the spring itself, the breath of spring, and not by just its own power, but that of the turning of the stars in their most beautiful and human and loving proportions, in that they resonated as our voice resonated, as the voices of children resonated with the best of homes and the most wonderful of mommies and daddies, and the most commendable lives, that we could have just such a bare minimum of one sanctity or another as a child, a cleanliness and order and a safety by all the proportions of all the religions in the world and all the homes and all the traditions. To have that thing sacred unto itself that was enough for such a mind, that it was never going to be too much to just let that mind be itself. Look at that mind, that yes, we take such pride in caring for our children, and they are so forgiving, and their forgiveness is not to be contemptuous or to impugn the mother's and father's love and the work that we do. But don't forget to look at why this mind is so sacred, and why it's so wonderful, and why we're all so wonderful as children, and why that's such a wonderful time of our lives. And don't just leave it to the child psychologist, and don't just leave it to your own children to have a tear or two for what we might have forgotten in the sanctity of our minds, that we forgot in the sanctity of the indigenous man, who is none of ours to put into our voices and say we know what their existence is like, but that we should hear at least something of a scream from human history. But anything that happened that was wrong, that white people did to other people, it was also wrong for people to defile the sanctuary of a child. That so many different colored people in the world are so good at preserving that who knows, maybe they take it for granted and they could hear this video and go, wow, we do take pretty good care of our children. A lot of brownish people take very good care of the sanctity of a child's mind. If you can keep that child from being abused and keep them feeling like they've got a purpose in life, whether you let them roam free like I would probably let my children, or you keep them in at least a very consistent matrix of being that allows them to have a chance of drawing forth a new breath. If life is such and such a difficulty that you must be such and such a disciplinarian, but that you manage to let them, lose one breath, but find another incarnation of purpose that will sustain them, so they feel good about it. They get the other side of childhood and go, that's okay, I'm all right, I'm feeling pretty good. Because it can be an off-put experience that in incompetent or difficult hands does not end up feeling very well. But the first thing, regardless of how children grow up or who does what, how good a job with their children or estimating the celestial power of a child's mind, but that I have learned to notice some very explicit transgressions against children. And one of them is when I see little girls, 2 and 3, put in clothing that makes them look like prostitutes. I'm sorry, but I'm very passionate. I would never say this to a woman or say this in public per se, but it's just like, fuck, stop dressing your little girls like dolls, for fuck's sake. Please fucking stop it. And this is a man, and this is a witch, and this is a child of a woman that fucking appreciates celestial energy in little girls, right? You give the little boys the baggy shorts, and they can just be comfortable running around, right? Form, comfort, whatever. But you put the little girls in these tight pants and these fucking ridiculous colors and these... Jesus Christ, man. The little girl can't tell, but you're treating her like a little fucking prostitute. You've completely sexualized her. Don't let the fashion fucking industry and the child fucking fashion industry dictate what your fucking little girls look like. They have an incredible celestial energy. You should be treating them like fucking royalty, for Christ's sake. Why do you think little girls like to call themselves a princess? Disney knows that little girls are fucking royalty. They have an incredible celestial biology. What do you think the Hindu gods are royalty? Because they understand that the royal energy of the son of man's flesh and blood and the mother and the child and the daughter is fucking powerful and celestial. Don't just let them be children, man. Let them be little girls and love them and whatever you need to do, but don't dress them like prostitutes. Don't let them be sexualized. Don't just let them be. Just let them be. Let them. I want to find out. I want to hear from women what they think about themselves. I've never met a woman who had a chance to think about who she was as a little girl before she was sexualized. I'm sorry, but I haven't, and it's sad as fuck. But nothing that I can mourn means that you're out of the game, ladies. It doesn't. You've survived so well that you can beat the living fuck out of me, I'll tell you that. Any woman can beat the living fuck out of me with her voice. Obviously, it has not been a happy ride for women. I get it. I want to say back in return, I don't want to slap you and hurt you. I don't want to start a religion to help protect men from you, although I suppose that would be rational. I just want to say I got your point. History has been a violent ride for you. And to defile the female creative energy is the worst fucking thing we could ever do. We might as well be killing ourselves slowly. Why would anyone do that? And any violence to women, you could ask yourself, if depending on where you're at, why would anyone do that? The victim says, why would anyone do that? You hear about violence to women or children, like, why would anyone do that? You hear about violence to me from women, and you might say, why would a woman do that? We're going to be asking that for eternity. Why do people do that? Explaining negative or violent human behavior is a very unsatisfying occupation. Let me assure you. But that it has boundaries, or I have boundaries, shows that there's probably work to be done. There's something that can be developed within boundaries. If I can go against boundaries, then I can develop something within them. Our personal thoughts, these personal thoughts, my personal thoughts, people's personal thoughts, if you will, don't have to be everything, or they don't have to be heard by others, or they could be rude, or they could be undeveloped, and all those things. The realm of the personal thoughts, right? Great, powerful, what they need to be, never enough, sacred, personal, guttural, rude, fantastical, delusional, but what they need to be. Free, right? Our personal thoughts. But let there be some commutative power in the power of those thoughts. They don't need to be any more powerful than how they feel in our own minds. You don't want buildings falling down because you're angry, that type of thing. You're not an X-Man. But X represents the gift of man's power in communication. And they could have a commutative relationship, our thoughts, our personal thoughts, with something that could be beneficial. So don't think that your personal thoughts don't contribute to the rest of your life. and let their greatest power simply be that they could be taken up by celestial organs that just would allow very inconspicuous benefit to keeping your family safe by having time to vent your thoughts. That thoughts well vented were always time well spent. I have to be careful. And I have tested myself in how far I need my voice to go, or what I may need it to do, and also keeping mindful of the dangers of using my mind every day to keep it magical but not harmful to myself or others. So lots of boundaries. You hear the eagle, lots of boundaries on myself, lots of self-doubt, lots of boundaries. Spend too much time by myself thinking, what would happen. But what I find is that within the right boundaries and with compassion with myself, it's like, I think I'm not too bad. I'm not going to err too badly. I want to make a church out of my mother. It's not such a bad thing. I got to give her a hug today. And then I said, hey, Mom, give me a hug. She was like, okay. Sorry. I'm stoned picking everything up to get ready to go. I love my mom. My mom, I love my mom. And my mom has given me the priceless gift of allowing me to discover at 50 where I feel good and where I don't feel good about energy I get from women. It's amazing. I'm learning what some people learn at 15 and 16, at 49 and 50. And my mom has allowed me to do that. It's a great gift my mom has given me to really help me learn about good and bad energy from other people. And she's allowed me to do that. Allowed me to discover that for myself. And although it's been most trying parts of our relationship, and my relationship with my mom, it's been the richest of my life. She's really allowed me in my life. And I've sometimes, I guess, forced her to allow me to know how I feel about everything and people and women that I've known. She's really allowed me, and it can't be easy, to hear what I've had to say many times. And she has slowly allowed me to do that. It's been the greatest gift of my life. Like, I haven't had to go to school. I haven't had to have a job per se. I've learned the greatest thing in the world. Learning to know how I feel about how people treat me and other people's energy. And as infuriating as it is, my mom allows me to say what I know about it. You know, she understands. She's learned to understand. And she's allowed me to discover that for myself. I learned a lot of things from my mom. And her connection to the medicine wheel. I saw the spirit of the bear today, and the eagles were close to me. In all these ways, my mother is close to me. That she allows me to speak my mind. Mother Nature allows me to speak my mind. I'm so thankful to her. It's the thing I'm scared most about doing. I think a lot of people are. I've seen how people are scared of speaking, but I've never really fully honored how scared I am of speaking about anything, about how I feel about women, men, everything and everyone around me in the world. I love talking about that. I wish there was a job where you could do that. I think there are people who'd like to hear what I have to say, but I'd rather wish I was 15 years old and people were like, oh, this is what a 15-year-old thinks about the world. And so you wouldn't take me too seriously. But you would. You were like, hey, this 15-year-old really knows a lot. I probably know more as a 15-year-old than I do as a 50-year-old. You know? Maybe it's purity of mind. But my mom has, and my mother, and nature, and my mother, has just given me so much by allowing me to. I'll always be disturbed by women, you know? But she has taught me to kind of understand them better. But to not feel like I have to defend my need to defend myself from them and to protect myself and what feels safe and what doesn't. I come out here today to stay away from women and to feel safe. And sure enough, I've been away from women all day and I'm kind of recovering from even just the 2 or 3 women I had a smattering of proximity with yesterday, walking in a different territory. My mom lets me learn those things. I love my mom. Thanks, Mom. You know, I really need to know that. That's something I seem to really need to know as I go on in life. What I can and cannot accept about female behavior in any incarnation. I really notice anytime I watch a video, everything, how women behave, especially on YouTube. Like, to watch how police officers behave for women, not just because they're police, but it's an opportunity to see how women behave. In this case, as a police officer, but it's in other situations, women's behavior is very problematic, and what women think they can get away with, and talking to men a certain way, particularly female behavior towards men, whom you might think err on the side of maybe provoking unwanted attention or negative attention. You could argue that, but I would say, I always look at it this way, like, you know, there are lots of people that maybe demand our negative attention as you go through this world. But I always wonder why certain people pick on certain people, right? There's all kinds of things to dislike about hockey, but maybe you find only the things that are wrong with the opponent's team, or certain people, or a TV show, certain characters you choose to dislike, when you could actually dislike any number of them. It's the amazing thing about TV, like, almost every character is a reprobate, but yet you only choose to dislike certain characters. And that's the trick of theater, that's the black magic of theater. Everyone in theater is a bad person. But you mete out your compassion and your understanding and your love differently to different characters, based on the spell work and the spellcraft and the plot and the dynamics of the scripter and the actor and what the actor is supposed to achieve. Basically, to be like a bad person among all the bad people in the theater that get you to like them more and to hate them less, and to be more forgiving toward them in a way that elevates them. They become a really great person, not because they are better people, but because you've been convinced to put them on a pedestal. You call them the hero. And in one incarnation, they're like a famous person who is a character you like. In another, they're the scapegoat that you're flogging the next day with no consideration for their rights. it's a similar cult. As much as your attention is gathered in a dark or deceptive way, your behavior is, or inattention to others, is meted out in another similarly dark way. It's economic witchcraft. So yeah, I watch people's behavior when they have the ability to mistreat people, whether it's their job, in the case of the police. So it's like, all right, okay, that sucks. Not a nice way to see it, perhaps, but it's sort of their job, to err on the side of maybe not being a nice person, to put it nicely, right? It's not their job to be your best friend, right? It's just the way it is. It's like a necessary evil. We all live with it. If you can live with that, the police say, good for you. That's what a good person should do. If you don't feel like you live with it, like, well, you're a terrorist. It's kind of like black and white. It's like, okay, grumble, all right, I hate you, but okay. And, they're like a religious force, right? Like a local god or demigod. If you don't like the demigod, or you gotta worship the demigod in public as he walks by, because if you don't, he might hurt you or humiliate you. You worship me or else. That's kind of what the police say, right? They do it nicely, but it's built into the culture. It's part of the economic religion of the world. It's not their fault. We're all participating. You weren't consented, nor were they, and no one's expected to know what they're really doing. So just relax and enjoy the show. Okay. This is exciting, isn't it? It's very exciting. We're on the rocks. I just have been talking all day. I'm delirious. It's, I'm glad no one's around me, but if I was at a party and I was talking this much, I'd be like, oh shit, I hope nobody's recording this. This is not going to seem right. This seems right now in my head, but really it's crazy. That's why I don't watch my videos. I didn't want to go back and watch it. It's like, oh shit. I thought this was a good use of my time. Oh my god. I think it is. But how do you know for sure? Right? How do I know for sure? That's sanity talking. Self-doubt equals sanity. Write it down. Self-doubt, people, equals sanity. You must doubt yourself. If you have a lot of personal time and a lot of personal thoughts, which are sacred, and some of which, not all, is commutative with the world that helps to generate those personal thoughts, you would say, and a world those personal thoughts would like, among the fruits of their occupations, to kind of benefit the world with a little celestial feedback, like, hey, stop being so the world, and I'll thank you for it tomorrow. Okay, so I like the world, don't like the world, personal thoughts about the world. Let them have some kind of benefit on the world, but in a very delicate way, so you never get too conspicuous. But the earth thanks you for your thoughts because she can use them to change the world. She actually likes your feedback. Like, oh, Landon didn't like that gang rape. Personal note number 1. No, more thoroughly than that. As much as we're caught up in the destiny of human economics, which is an economic destiny, and a fairly lethal one, but it is the one that our language, very, very right up into the word destiny, and what that